Hi there, my name's Kirilly, Cosmic Space Priestess, and I'm Agent 27 at the Cosmic Intelligence Agency. And this is a very special New Moon in Gemini report for 2017 for the Cosmic Intelligence Agency. So, the New Moon in Gemini is happening on the 25th or the 26th of May, depending where you are in the world. And it's happening at 4 degrees and 46 minutes of Gemini. So, as usual, I highly recommend that you check out where 4 degrees and 46 minutes of Gemini falls in your chart, because then you'll see where the Sun and Moon are conjunct and which house, i.e. which area of your life is being excited, ignited for something new to burst through. So that's our New Moon in Gemini. So interestingly, this new moon is really complicated, just like the full moon in Scorpio chart was really complicated, but it's complicated in its own sweet, crazy way, just like Gemini. What do you know? So, first thing to note about the chart, before I even go into any depth around it, is that there's 5 planets that don't have any major aspects happening. So that includes the Sun and the Moon. Well, they're conjunct, obviously it's the new moon, but the new moon's not making any major aspects to any other planets. Nor is Mercury, nor is Jupiter, and nor is Neptune. So 5 planets not making major aspects means there's just a lot of powerful energy floating out there in astroland that's just not connecting. It's just in its own universe of energy, but not really making contact. So that tells us something a bit about this new moon energy. And it's quite ironic because Gemini is obviously the sign that represents our social life, where we could expect to be making a whole lot of new friends, new contacts, you know, set up new networks. That 5 of the planets are like, yeah, my own energy, do my own thing. Including the new moon in Gemini. Not just that, when we look at the planets that actually are making major aspects, it's looking pretty, let's just say, challenging, just to put it nicely. So Venus is in square to Pluto, Saturn is in square to Chiron, and Mars is in opposition to Saturn. Now these all create a lot of tension and strain, these aspects. Then we can even scratch the surface of the major aspects and look at the minor aspects, to which there are plenty at this new moon in Gemini. I won't go into them all, but let's just say there is an array of semi-squares, sesqui-squares and quincunxes running through this, which is creating an untold amount of friction, irritability, tension. So we could say about this chart there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of challenge, and that creates energy. So definitely there's a lot of energy around this chart, and it's a new moon, so new energy, and there's a Grand Fire Trine. So you can imagine, you know, like to get the flint going, to get the spark, to set things on fire. So there's plenty of fuel to do that in this new moon in Gemini chart. So I hope I'm not overwhelming you with aspects here. I just want to give you this kind of like bird's eye view of what it looks like without going into it, just to pick up some of the spirit of what's here at this new moon. It's always with Gemini. I mean, Gemini has the reputation of being superficial, but it doesn't take long to scratch the surface of Gemini to find a major amount of complexity and powerful, many powerful archetypal forces converging through this sign. So wow, pretty exciting. Okay, so where to begin? Let's start with the ruler of Gemini, which is Mercury. And there's Mercury in Taurus. Oh, thank goodness for that. Why do I say that? Well, okay, we have been traveling for some time with Mars in Gemini, and I don't know about you, but I've thought it's been lots of fun, this Mars in Gemini energy, you know, meeting lots of people, lots of socializing, lots of activity, having this whole world of duality right up in our face. So we've been in 2 minds whilst we've seen these sort of like 2 faces of ourselves, you know, get reflected back at us in the world, and it's just like wow. But after that super intense full power Scorpio full moon, it's been a really good time to just settle down as Mercury's come into Taurus, and to integrate all that's been going on, and to come back to a place of interiorization and just allow all this amazing power that's getting constellated in us to, you know, move kind of methodically and powerfully through our body. And with this, all this mental zone, Mars in Gemini, and now the new moon coming in Gemini, Sun and Moon in Gemini, it's actually starting to feel quite exhausting, you know, mental exhaustion. And this is Mars in Gemini opposite Saturn in Sagittarius. We might be starting to feel like, oh, I've just had enough of the mental plane, I've had enough of people, I just need to take 5, like seriously, at this point. So here's Mercury in Taurus supporting us, going, okay, ground that energy, ground all that nervous energy, all that chatter, all that mind clutter, and put it back in the earth. Put your feet back on the earth, come back into your embodied state, you know, put your consciousness back into your hands and ground them by putting them in the earth, or making things, or touching people, or touching your animals, or touching the trees. It's just like, let's let all this nervous energy ground. Yay. But Mercury too is making a difficult minor aspect. It's the, what have we got? It's the semi-square to Saturn. So I'm going to bundle all of this up for you. I need to drink. I'm in 36-degree heat. So I'm going to bundle all of this up so you get it really clear. At this new moon in Gemini, it is an ideal time to clear the mind, you know, and bring ourselves back to a state of no mind. Phew. Yes, there's quite a few indicators around this, and with Saturn there creating a sense of mental exhaustion, you know, and with Mercury in Taurus also supporting us to ground, it is a really good time to kind of almost just drain the mental body, you know, as we're going down. Allow that to occur and follow the process to just come back to the ground and let it all go. And this is ideal. You could even start this process before the new moon. Work with this through the dark moon, a perfect time to release and let go. We've had an amazing lunation cycle that's just been, especially that full moon in Scorpio. I mean, what a great time to let go of so much, you know. And there's so many things in our mind. We actually become mentally attached, you know, to so many ideas, so many ways of thinking, you know, to all the boxes we want to put things in, all the theories, all the stories we've told ourselves, even our learning. You know, as an eternal student, I've watched myself in process over many, many years, where I'll work very diligently on learning something very thoroughly, you know, get right into something. I'm a Scorpio, okay, I get obsessed with things. I get right into it, you know, and then it reaches like this critical peak, and it's time for me to let go of everything I've learned and to put it all back into the subconscious, and to bring my mind back to a state of complete no mind, and to start again with a beginner's mind, you know. And I speak about this actually in the North Node, South Node video that I've just made, which I highly encourage you to watch, the power of the beginner's mind. So yeah, coming back to that state of just emptiness, clarity, and no mind. And in that place, that's when Source can do its greatest work for us, because we are no longer blocking the flow of the Tao, the flow of Qi down through our higher selves and into our other bodies. We're no longer blocking it mentally, you know, with all these built up mental constructs we have, all these ideas we're sticking to. Let it go. Free your mind. And this is a really cool thing about this Grand Fire Trine. It's got written all over it, not just that the truth will set you free, this whole idea about freedom and liberation. And one way to free ourselves is to free ourselves of these mental constructs. And this is all part and parcel too of what's been going on with Saturn hanging out at the galactic center for 2 months, right on it. It's now retrograded back off and will continue to retrograde, but then it'll go back over. And in a way, on our path to mastery, if that's what you're into, we are called to actually let go of all we know. Let go of all the lessons, let go of all the wisdom as we've accumulated up to this point. Throw it back into the galactic dustbin, into the black hole, and wait for the next level of grace to move through us and to reawaken us at the level of the mental body. So that's pretty exciting and cool. What else is going on? That's the Gemini planets mixing it up with Saturn. Also, let's go to Venus, because this is really interesting and juicy, I think. Venus is in Aries. She's catching up with Eris and Uranus. They're part of this Grand Fire Trine. She's also squaring Pluto in Capricorn. So this is pretty full on. Venus has come out of the shadow phase. Yes, 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 yes. And she's still ready to stand as herself in her power. And guess what? Now she's squaring Pluto. So Pluto in Capricorn can be typecast, let's say, as the patriarchy. You know, the old systems, the old power oligarchs that have the dominant force being men, you know, and women still having to fight for their rights just to have equal rights, you know. So if you've been feeling in the last week this build up again, and it doesn't matter whether you identify as male, female, or wherever on the gender spectrum, if you've been feeling the feminine build up in her fiery warrior like style, then you're feeling this Venus in Aries square Pluto in Capricorn. She's ready to take on the fight again. She's ready to fight for women's rights. She's ready to fight on behalf of children. She's ready to fight on behalf of the earth and land rights. She's ready to fight on behalf of the animals. You know, everything about the feminine, food rights, housing rights. Like, she is firing up. She's had enough. She's ready to go incendiary, and she's meeting up with Eris and Uranus in Aries. So this is like pouring gasoline on the revolutionary fires, and she's showing up right at that time going, I'm ready to take this on. I'm ready to take on the dark side of society and all these man-made institutions, you know. So she's getting powered up, but at the same time Pluto's putting force and pressure down on her, whittling away her rights, or whittling away the rights of animals, or the rights of, you know, indigenous people, or the rights of people's reproductive rights, or anything to do with the feminine, you know. So it's like this stuff is coming up big time over this new moon in Gemini. And what's the new moon in Gemini going to want to do about it? It's going to want to talk about it and spread ideas and disseminate information about this revolution, you know, wake people up. And that's what Uranus is there to do, is to wake people up. So I guess you all know by now that most of us are kind of living this life where we are most of the time fairly well much asleep. Is going about the business of living out our social and cultural conditioning, you know. So many of us stuck in the hamster wheel lifestyle, you know, robotically living, you know, disconnected, numbed out, like just following, too exhausted to, hey, that's not cool, you know, to put up a fight at the end of the day, don't have time, need to get dinner ready, need to do a million things, need to get to bed so we can get up and do it all again tomorrow. So it's hard, it's really hard for people to really see clear of what's going on, and even when they can see clear of what's going on, it's hard for them to do anything about it because they are in this eternal round the matrix has them in, and they just don't seem to have the energy, time, resources to be able to really take on these overbearing oppressive forces that are taking more and more control, doing more and more destruction here on planet Earth and in our societies. So Uranus comes along. Uranus, the planet of the revolution. It's like a lightning bolt, Thor's lightning bolt, and it usually hits in like a shock force. And with Eris there, it definitely is like cosmic shock therapy to wake us up, you know, and we can wake up suddenly through sudden crisis, sudden catastrophe. sudden shocks, sudden changes, you know, but it only wakes us up temporarily, and then we fall back asleep. And so here's this thing with fire. That's the cool thing about fire. We love the fire when it suddenly burns, it suddenly goes off. It's very impressive. But for anyone with a lot of planets in fire, you know, it's good to listen to this. It's very easy just to burn fire when you're fiery. But the trick is to sustain it. How are we going to sustain the fire? How are we going to sustain the inspiration? How are we going to sustain our aspiration? How are we going to sustain our determination? How are we going to sustain our courage? How are we going to sustain our focus? How are we going to sustain our spiritual practice? You know, and so this is Uranus in Aries, this shock force, trining out to Saturn. Saturn's very grounded, very stable, very steady, all about persistence and hard work. So, and this is all trining the North Node in Leo and making sextiles to the South Node in revolutionary, heralding in the new Aquarius South Node. So it's like we are being called to find a way to work with this fire, to work with these times, to sustain, and in Venus's case, sustain the rage, you know, and the fury and the war, to get up and to fight for what we believe is right and to fight for our rights. It's coming back on big time with this Aquarius South Node, that we are being awoken to the spirit of the revolution, and we are being awoken to how we function in society. So we've left the South Node in Pisces, ruled by Neptune in Pisces. Very cosmic, you know, dealing with ancestral ghosts, very transpersonal, very like mystical, to do with healing. So all these like concepts that belong to much more subtle states of awareness and much more deeper layers of human being. Whereas now we're in Aquarius land, this is straight up working at the societal level. This is straight up working on human rights, animal rights, land rights, working in the court system, working with the legal system, gathering in community groups, getting organized, getting focused, developing new systems, working with new technologies, working with new ideas, thinking outside the square, coming from left field, and bam, showing up as leaders, Leo North Node, taking the lead, playing our part, playing vital roles, which each and every one of us are called to play the perfect role we were destined to play, making all the use of our talents, skills, resources, all the foundations of our lives, the inner child, the natural instincts, and evolving and cultivating those into something that's quite magnificent at the adult level, and then plugging in at a social community level to bring on board our full self-realization in service of all beings, past, present, and future generations. This is the sum total of what's going on at these nodes, this amazing Grand Fire Trine. Venus is coming to meet it, and she's also getting stress from the patriarchy at this point. The other stress on a more personal level for her is what she faces when she comes to standing her power as an individual and as a warrior goddess, and facing the dark forces, the shadow forces that linger within in terms of her own fears. She'll feel it as fear and insecurity, the inner critic. And this is replicated when we look at the Saturn square Chiron in a way. But still, we're dealing at this level of our fears and our insecurities and learning to overcome them, learning to become more resilient, learning to love ourselves from within and tap into this universal source of love and energy and vitality, and really centering ourselves from this place. So we are less and less and less dependent on the external world for affirmation, for validation, for reinforcement. We get all that from within and more. We get almost everything we need from within. And most importantly, we draw on this eternal, universal, unlimited supply of unconditional love that's available for us. So this is an inside job, and this is what Saturn is calling us to. Saturn is opposing Mars, Saturn is sesqui-squaring Mercury, Saturn is squaring Chiron. The Saturn is the most involved planet in this whole very uninvolved, standoffish kind of astrological chart. But Saturn's really calling us to come back in and focus on the source within, focus on the spirit within, and derive all our needs from this place. As part of this Grand Fire Trine, we're really being called to take back the power, which means we no longer project onto the world out there, to the institutions, to the politicians, to the corporations, to whoever. We no longer project power onto them. We find the power, the true source of power, source consciousness, God, however you like to call it, true power. That's where power lies in this universe. And our capacity to find that within ourselves and realize that we are a manifestation of that, and bring ourselves home to that truth and that reality and live through that. We take back the power, we find our truth, we we vitalize ourselves with faith in who we are, and we stand for that. We represent that. And I watched this interesting talk on Facebook the other day, and this man was talking about how, it's always a big risk to speak your mind, to speak your truth, but look at the risks of not speaking your mind and not speaking your truth. You end up living this life where you are incredibly diminished. It's probably a very banal life. It's probably very unsatisfactory, and probably you end up, just kind of gnawing at yourself and eating yourself from the insides, where you weren't able to express yourself fully. So, which is the greater risky life to live? The one where you stand and take the consequences of being in your power and continuously empower yourself through meeting those circumstances, or the one where you just allow yourself to fade into the background and not be heard. So at this time, with all this powerful energy in this Grand Fire Trine, and it's the year of the rooster, it's definitely a grand time to start to show up in your power and to shine. So let me see. So as usual, I highly encourage you to do a ceremony at this new moon. And the ideal ceremony to do at every new moon is an intention activation ceremony. So that's where you create sacred space for yourself however you like. It could be simple as just lighting a candle and speaking to the candle your wishes, your desires, your intentions for the upcoming lunar month. It could be something a little bit more interesting for you that involves more of your spiritual tools, more of your familiar objects that you work with for manifestation. It could be gathering with friends and jamming an idea together for something really beautiful to do together to support one another with your intentions. So however you choose to do this, at this new moon in Gemini, it is a perfect time to work with the creative power of the word. So that could mean writing. Maybe for you that means blogging or journaling. It could be speaking, making recordings. It could be poetry. Also, the sun and moon in Gemini are disposited by Mercury in Taurus, which means working with the hands, working with the body, working with Mother Earth. So you might wish to make things with your hands as part of your invocation for your intentions. You might wish to work with the body, a much more hands-on way of expressing yourself, Also to work with Mother Earth. So maybe that's getting your hands in the sand and beginning to move and groove your intentions. Also, Mercury in Taurus is disposited by Venus in Aries, and here comes that revolutionary zeal, all that evolutionary zeal, that desire, that creative fire to grow and evolve yourself. And I 100% support you in that. Whatever it is you do, do it with the intention to grow, expand, and enlighten yourself. She too is a dancer. She is a mover. So really get into movement at this new moon as you set your intentions. And then Venus in Aries, is disposited by Mars in Gemini. And he just likes to talk and get out there and make many connections, set up new networks. So he too might want to get out and gather with others and talk up ideas around personal as well as collective intentions. Saturn in Sagittarius is also calling on us to tune into source from within. Find the light, find the truth, find the power, find the love. Find that all from within and emanate that. And with the nodes where they are, make your intention, make your creative engagement with yourself, with spirit, and with the word all about how you want to show up. Your intentions for yourself, your intentions for your life path, for your purpose, for your self-realization, you know. Make your intentions for yourself to come into your highest potential and to realize yourself in this world, to be a big part of that wave, that beautiful wave that's coming through of enlightened beings, creating the new earth, and this will be our evolution. Okay, so that's it for now. If you're interested in astrology reading with me, you're welcome to contact me on Facebook at Kirilly Cosmic Space Priestess, or via email at Kirilly@healingwithimagination. So until the full moon in Sagittarius, ciao for now.